33.3 News with your host, Trey Harris.
The heathen rage, and the people imagine a vain thing. The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it.
When we are successful, and we will be.
Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that ye should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. For there are certain men crept in unawares, who were before, of old, ordained to this condemnation.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to yet another episode of 33.3 News. My name is Trey Harris, and I just want to take a minute to thank all of you for joining me for this evening's show. So we've got a lot to talk about on this episode, and we're going to get to, honestly, about as much of it as we possibly can. So let's come over here, because I don't think that I have my media stuff ready, so alright, so I don't. So give me just a second here, guys. Here we go. Now I got it up here. So, guys, before, as always, that's not gonna work. Oh, I know why. Give me just a second. This is why. There we go. That fixed it. All right, guys. So, yeah, like I said, we've got a lot to talk about tonight. We are going to be looking at, number one of the things I want to discuss with you, and hopefully we'll have an article coming out for this for you guys to read as well, and maybe share with people that don't know. I'm sure as many of you heard over the weekend, last week, the Silicon Valley Bank, the bank that a lot of these big tech companies use, kind of went belly up, and of course, the government's calling for bailouts and things like that with it. And but what you may not have heard of were the other two banks that were going under, and now this week it's been broken that Credit Suisse, or however you say that, the big Swiss bank, might possibly be going under as well. Matter of fact, I probably need to pull up an article on that one too. All right, let's see. All right, so let me reorganize my news stories a little bit. All right, so we've got now I think about 4 banks in total that are having an issue. And look, I just want to read this real quick. This is kind of the verses that this show, overall, these are the verses that it's based off of. So this is Ezekiel chapter 33. Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, speak to the children of thy people, and say unto them, When I bring the sword upon the land, if the people of the land take a man of their coasts, and set him for their watchman, if when he seeth the sword cometh upon the land, he blow the trumpet and warn the people, then whosoever heareth the sound of the trumpet and take not warning, if the sword come and take him away, his blood shall be upon his own head. But pay attention to this right here. He heard the sound of the trumpet and took not the warning, his blood shall be upon him. But he that taketh the warning shall deliver his soul. But if the watchman see the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, if the sword come and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity, and his blood will I require at the watchman's hand. So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman upon the house of Israel. Therefore thou shalt hear the word at thy mouth and warn them from me. Now, of course, when you are really familiar with the book of Ezekiel and really the concept of a prophet as a whole, of course, the prophet's job was, hey, you guys need to repent or judgment's going to come. If you did not warn of the judgment to come, this is what the Lord is telling Ezekiel, that the prophet that did not warn of the coming judgment, the blood was on his hands, right? We'll sit here, we'll talk about the news, and lately we haven't been so much talking about physical secular news as we just have been talking about some other things, because I believe those things are important for the body of Christ. However, when we see stories like this, we see these banking crises and things like that. These things are super important. Why? Because things like this, I believe 100% we are dealing with the judgment of God here, because we are a wicked, adulterous generation. And all you have to do is turn on the evening news and you'll see that. The killings, the rioting, the advocacy for things that are completely and totally against Scripture, getting away from God's created order of marriage and family, getting away from all of these things, the judgment of God comes. And there's people that are organizing it all. These are honestly, in my opinion, evil people. And then there's the people that get deluded in the middle of it, that are just looking for the things we're all looking for. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be loved. We all want to find meaning, right? And of course, because people are not looking for that meaning in Christ, and ultimately the fulfillment that only He can bring, they get caught up in movements like this. And it's our job, if we can and however we can, to just warn them of what could await them if they don't repent. Now, maybe for you, that's standing out on a street corner and doing open air preaching, or maybe you get behind a microphone and you make YouTube videos, or maybe it's just building a relationship and getting to know people that you work with. And literally that relationship, God will use that open door. All of these ways are ways that you and I can all be watchmen on the wall. And this, what we're going to talk about today, I think this is very important because of this verse right here. Let me get over here. Revelation chapter 6. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard the third beast say, Come and see. And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, A measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. Now, of course, that word penny there is the Greek word dinar, or denari. And it basically constitutes, if you look at what Jesus said, it's the same word that Jesus used in his parable where all the men came and they worked in the field and each got a day's wage. It's the same word. And so the connotation here seems to be that this is the same thing that was accepted as a day's wage, or what a lot of scholars say. If that is the case, you're looking at a severe hyperinflation here, where a measure of wheat is now worth a day's wages. You're looking at an economic crisis right here in the book of Revelation. And so that is why I think things like this are incredibly important. And so that's why I want to come right over here. And this is from CoinDesk. CoinDesk.com. This is our first story that we're really going to get into here today. All right, this is an opinion piece. Matter of fact, this isn't even the first one I want to go over. I want to go over this one first. So let me get this pulled up real quick. But you know what? While this is getting pulled up, yeah, this is the one we want. While this is getting pulled up, and we're going to come over here, guys, because I have not loaded the ad for this on the new computer yet. So I'm going to bring you guys over here live and just say, make sure you're checking out shakeandwakeradio.com. And if you were to come over here, let's take a look at it real quick. We'll just go through a brief crash course of what this wonderful website has to offer. So these are just some of the shows that you'll find on here. You will find, music from Casper McLeod. Good music from what I've heard so far. And there's the Duke Jam Studios. The Global Watchman News, The Cutting Edge, The Midnight Ride, Remnant Restoration, FOJC Radio every Sabbath Saturday on Shake and Wake Radio, The Doctrine of Christ, Breaking Babylon, The Sheila Zelinsky Show, The Transforming Word, TLB Talk Radio, Reclaiming the Faith, Pounders Live, By Their Fruits. There's just so many shows on here. And this is all designed for your edification and for your blessing. So make sure you go check out shakeandwakeradio.com. Annie is working very hard every day. And as you can see, yours truly, Course Correction Radio, you'll find on there, Through the Black with Tom Dunn. So many great shows just for you guys. So make sure you check out shakeandwakeradio.com. Now, let's get into our first story. And this one is from USA Today. And this is our headline: Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, collapses, explained, and live updates on new developments. You guys will have to forgive me. I am severely stopped up. For once, it's not because I'm sick. It's actually I'm having an allergic reaction to some materials, fiberglass insulation, to be specific, that I had a run-in with in a crawl space the other day, and it is tearing me up. But it was doing a good deed. I had somebody under there that was terrified of snakes, and we found it had to at least be 5 foot long black snake skin, freshly shedded. And I had reports under the last time I had been under that house that one had been seen by the plumber. So I couldn't let my guy that was under there go under there alone with him having a fear of snakes. It's just not okay to do stuff like that. So I took one for the team. So forgive me. I'm going to be sniffling on and on. But it's already so much better than it was. So praise God for that. All right, so let's take a look at this. I am going the wrong way. All right, it's been a tumultuous few days for banks since the now shuttered Silicon Valley Bank announced Wednesday it had suffered a $1.8 billion after-tax loss and urgently needed to raise more capital to quell depositors' concerns. By Friday, SVB's chances of getting access to more funding appeared paper thin. That led the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation to take over the bank after failed attempts to sell it to healthier banks. So the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, of course, that's the FDIC. The FDIC announced Friday afternoon that customers who had up to $250,000 per account deposited with SVB, which was the nation's 16th largest bank, would have access to their funds by Monday morning, but it wasn't known at the time what would happen to the deposits that exceeded $250,000, the limit the FDIC ensures in the event of a bank failure. So, yeah. You know, these places that had more than $250,000, basically, from what I understand, I am not a financial expert, so take this with a huge grain of salt. From what I understand, these banks that are FDIC insured, typically there's a good chance that if you're a company and you have money in this bank and it's over $250,000, if the bank goes belly up, you're screwed for anything over $250,000. So there's a ripple effect, how Silicon Valley Bank collapse is affecting other U.S. banks. And that basically, from what I understand, they are worried about this causing not just a ripple effect with banks, but a ripple effect with so many other businesses too. Because let's say, all right, so these companies, their payroll, right? So they have their money in the bank, but anything over $250,000, they really don't know what's going to happen yet. They're not able to pay their employees. Their employees aren't going to go out and buy goods, either food, yada, yada, because they're not getting their paychecks. Those businesses will be directly affected, and it could cause some potential financial crisis and an economic collapse, worst case scenario, right? That makes sense, that ripple effect, because we know that our economy is a supply and demand economy, right? Well, we've had issues with supply, but there's been plenty of demand. But if people don't have their money from their paychecks because the bank that was holding the money for their paychecks went belly up, well, there goes your demand, and now you have all of the supply, no demand. These companies are, of course, paying money to get this supply in, but they're not turning a profit on it. Then they're going to start going belly up, and then it'll just keep rippling because that's what ripples do, right? Like I said, I'm not a financial guy, so take that for whatever it's worth. But that, I mean, to me makes a lot of sense. So when you look at stuff like this, I can definitely see the cause for concern. But what I think is going to be interesting, and if it wasn't for the fact that I'm recording this on a Friday night during the tail end of Spiritual Warfare Friday, I would absolutely call Dan up while we were on this show and get him to run this through, because I believe, and I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but Dan has talked multiple times. If you've watched his news show back when that was, more of a regular thing, he's talked multiple times about central bank digital currencies, right? I've talked about central bank digital currencies, right? Basically what it is it looks like a cryptocurrency, right? Except basically what it is it's not a cryptocurrency. What it is it would give the government complete control over the economy, basically. So, and there's even a clip that I saw earlier when I was just doing research for this show where it talked about, it was basically a commentator talking about, if inflation got out of hand with a central bank digital currency or a CBDC, they could just cut off everybody's assets to quell inflation, right? Not only that, but you look at it with credit scores, social credit scores, things like that. And these are all theories. I mean, that's all this is right now. I think they're very plausible theories, if nothing else. That's just my personal opinion. But what you could do is if somebody doesn't have a good enough ESG score or a social credit score, call it what you will, well, then you could freeze their assets, right? Oh, hey, sorry, we're not going to start your Tesla because we don't like what you put on Facebook earlier, right? It's a control mechanism. Now, let's just lay out a hypothetical situation here. If they wanted to do that, well, how would they need to do that? They'd have to create an economic crisis to get the current banking system out of the way, right? Now, in theory, how would you do that? You would create some sort of crisis to make sure that your economy gets shut down. I don't know. Like, let's say a potential contagion gets released, and to stop the contagion, you get 15 days to slow the curve, right? Well, that 15 days turns into a year. And in some places, even more than a year, and people are not working. You give them incentive to stay home by, I don't know, maybe releasing stimulus checks and, tax advances and things like that. You ensure that people stay home. The jobs aren't getting fulfilled. You create a supply chain issue, and you just wreak havoc on the economy. And then you have, let's say that that the railroads are in dire need of repair, but instead of putting stimulus money towards that in your stimulus bill and your infrastructure bill, what you actually do is put it towards wild things like making sure everybody gets internet in their home instead, and several other crazy pork items, if you will. And all of a sudden, a bunch of trains start derailing, and some of them have toxic chemicals that create even more of a crisis, right? Now you have drinking water that's getting affected and allegedly getting affected and things like that. And this is all just theory and hypothetical, right? None of this can be proven, and I'm not even saying this is an actual thing. I'm just saying, in theory, if you wanted to create this crisis to bring these control systems in, this is how I would do it. And so you create all this unrest and this worry, which then gets people panicking, and you can go do things like this, yada, yada. And, of course, nobody responds because the train derailment, in theory, wouldn't be so much be a way to get the bank to shut down. What that would do is you have nobody respond, and it dampens morale of people, right? They start losing faith in the current system as a whole because, let's say, the administration doesn't do anything about it, right? And so you lose faith in that. And then, because of all the other stuff that's going on, and because of things where people are so focused, look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with diversity. Obviously, God made people different, right? So he likes different things. Absolutely nothing wrong with that in theory. And God has given everybody their own conscience in some form or fashion. And he hasn't made us a theocracy. So really and truly, even though we preach the word and we tell people, what God expects, ultimately he's given them the free will to do what they want, right? So you guys get where I'm going with this. But if people start focusing on, instead of qualifications on jobs per se, and maybe they start focusing on people's sexual orientation or their race or anything like this, and job qualifications aren't getting met inside a bank, which, by the way, is allegedly what happened with Silicon Valley Bank. They didn't have a risk assessment manager, from what I had heard. If that is the case, that's horrible. Then things get mismanaged, that closes down, plus everything with this hypothetical situation we've been going over, ultimately to financial ruin. That creates a ripple effect, and then you've got to bring something in to replace this obviously failing system. What would you do? Well, we can't trust the paper because they can just keep pumping that in whenever we want, so we have to go digital. Everything's digital these days anyway. We have to go to the digital, and thus, in theory, a government could have total control of an economic grid through that. Is that what's happening? I don't know. That's just a theory. It's just a hypothetical situation. But I think it's one that people should be open to the possibility of, right? All we have seen for the past few years is a crackdown on control. That's not a theory. That actually happened. And YouTube's probably going to get mad at me for saying that, but it's a fact. It's a fact that people got emergency powers, and very few of them gave them back. Right? I mean, look at places like New York. New York is an absolute dumpster fire. Look at places like California. California just broke their partnership with Walgreens. I think it was Walgreens. It's just, Stupid stuff. Now, I have a theory about the Walgreens thing, because what I think is happening there is Gavin Newsom's communist self is getting rid of that private business, Walgreens, so that California can become a true communist, a capitalistic communist place, and have their own to put in place of it that they can totally control. Just my theory. We'll see how that goes. I'm not here to tell you what to believe or what to think. I'm just here to give you stories and let you come to your own conclusions. So let's go over here to this one, because this one is interesting as well. Actually, let's do this one first. All right. So this is from CNBC. Why regulators seized Signature Bank in third biggest bank failure in U.S. history. Think about that. The third biggest bank failure in U.S. history. And so this one's a little old. It's from, let's see what's today. As I'm currently recording this, it is the 18th of March. So this is from about 4 days ago. So on Friday, Signature Bank customers, spooked by the sudden collapse of Silicon Valley Bank, withdrew more than $10 billion in deposits, a board member told CNBC. Now, if you wanted, and I'm not saying this is the case, another hypothetical situation, let's say you wanted another bank to go under, what would you do? You would go and do mass withdrawals, because these banks don't keep a lot of cash on them, right? That's a proven fact too. By the way, I think it was Rob Blackwell has talked about that before. So you guys should check out some of his stuff on that, because he basically called this entire situation years ago. So it says that run on deposits quickly led to the third largest bank failure in U.S. history. Regulators announced late Sunday that Signature Bank was being taken over to protect its depositors and the stability of the U.S. financial system. So do you see what's happening? There's a crisis, but it's just like we talked about. So you see, it was not long ago we talked about UFOs, right? And what did I tell you guys in the UFO thing? What I found was interesting was not so much that they were talking about the UFO thing. Make of that whatever you will. What was interesting was the fact that they were creating more government organizations, more non-elected government organizations, mind you, because of it. The government was getting bigger. And now what we have is this ever-expanding government taking control of the banking system. Guys, it's a big red flag here. It's a huge red flag. So, this is a quote. I think part of what happened was that regulators wanted to send a very strong anti-crypto message, said the board member and former Congressman Barney Frank. So, we've talked about that. That is interesting, but what's interesting about me is that this one is the third largest, $10 billion. That's crazy. So Signature had 40 branches, assets of $110.36 billion, and deposits of $88.59 billion at the end of 2022, according to a regulatory filing. Quote, we had no indications of problems until we got a deposit run late Friday, which was purely contagion from SVB or Silicon Valley Bank, Frank told CNBC in a phone interview. Problems for U.S. banks with exposure to the frothiest asset classes of the COVID pandemic, crypto and tech startups boiled over last week with the wind down of crypto-centric Silvergate Bank. Now, see, that's the third one I wanted to talk about, was Silvergate. Now, this is a tale of two banks while Silvergate and Silicon Valley Bank collapsed. Now, see, here's what's interesting about Silvergate. Silvergate was a crypto bank or a crypto asset manager, something like that. So that was what started giving me the red flags about the digital currency thing, because now we all know about the scandal with Sam Bankman-Fried, right? And his little Ponzi scheme or whatever you want to call it. I don't want to misspeak on that, but whatever it was definitely some sort of form of scam, right? I think most people agree on that. But we saw that what did that do? That was, I believe, just my theory again, take it for whatever it is worth. To me, when I looked at the evidence, it seemed like the biggest thing that the media was running on was to put that distrust of crypto in people's heads. Now, you can say whatever you want about crypto, but what they want people, whether you're pro-crypto or you're anti-crypto, here's what matters, is they want people, average Joes, that, go to the regular, legacy media for their news. What they want them to do is think, oh my gosh, this is a madhouse of unregulated mess. We need the government to step in and take control of it, right? That's what they want. Especially more left-leaning, because typically left-leaning is very much pro-regulation of things. Which, don't get me wrong, there's definitely some right-leaning pro-regulation too. From what I understand, especially like neocons, they love that crap, right? And look, I'm not a political guy. I don't care anything about the politics about this. What I care about is people have rights. And the more this stuff cracks down and the more of this regulation that gets put on, the more people's rights will slowly be taken away until they have none left, right? So that's what I'm worried about. So let's take a look at this. And I just realized you guys haven't been able to see anything I've been talking about, so I apologize. So we can come back over here and look. Here's what I'll do. So if you were to want to read it, this was the article from CNBC right here. Well, not that. That's a pop-up. All right, so that's it right there. CNBC, why regulators seized Signature Bank in third biggest bank failure in U.S. history. See, that's what gets me, is the fact that it was seized, right? And then, of course, that's what these bailouts do, right? At least, that's the way it looks to me. Like I said, I'm not really the financial guy, so if I get any of this wrong, feel free to correct me in the comment section below. I'm just, like I said, I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm not here to tell you how to think. I'm just here to give you the information. Do with it what you will. So this week has seen major trouble for financial institutions tied to... I don't know why that's cut off like that. That's weird. Whatever that is. Forward-looking sectors of the economy. Silvergate Capital, a holding... I'm going to have to make this bigger. Bear with me, guys. There we go. And here's what I'll do. Let me come over here and there we go. That should make it to where you guys can see a little bit easier what's going on here. All right. So this week has seen major trouble for financial institutions tied to innovative and forward-looking sectors of the economy. Silvergate Capital, a holding company for a bank that since 2016 has had bet big on serving the emerging crypto economy, announced Thursday that it will wind down bank operations. Silicon Valley Bank, which has long played a similar role managing money for venture capital-funded startups, was shut down by state regulators Friday. In broad strokes, both banks were undone by the same challenge: classic bank runs. their erstwhile customers, whether crypto exchanges or tech startups, are facing broad business challenges thanks in part to economic and financial conditions. This has led to declining deposits and rising cash withdrawals at a time when a lot of banks' long-dated non-cash holdings were also being battered by the markets. And that meant when cash demands got it high enough, Silvergate and Silicon Valley Bank had to sell those backing assets at substantial losses. Yikes. Silvergate announced a $1 billion loss on the sale of assets in the fourth quarter of last year, while Silicon Valley Bank, with a larger overall balance sheet, also lost $1.8 billion while liquidating assets. In both cases, importantly, U.S. Treasury bonds made up large portions of the money-losing liquidations. So, a lot of this is just gobbledygook to me. But, I mean, it doesn't take much to see that if a bank is losing assets, that's a extremely a bad thing. So, and look, there's this article that unfortunately I'm not going to be able to get into. What we know about the Credit Suisse crisis and its global impact. So, but look, here's the bottom line is, like I said, I think a lot of this just goes back to the fact that we're almost in an out with the old and in with the new kind of scenario, right? So, I don't know what's going on here. Yeah, it looks like I'm freezing up, so honestly, I might just have too much stuff open. All right, so hopefully you guys can still hear me at least, but I think what we have going on here, and I'm going to go ahead and close out a bunch of this stuff. All right. I think a lot of what we're dealing with here is we're dealing with, let's just come over here. This one seems to be working fairly well right now, so we'll just come over to this one. All right, so I think what's happening here is we're in and out with the old and in with the new kind of scenario. Call it whatever you want. The people that made it are calling it the Great Reset, right? So, and I've got a video here. I want to show it to you real quick, and it's about 20 minutes, so we're going to kind of let this be its own segment real quick, and we'll come back, and we'll look at a little more of that news and go from there. So, but basically what you're going to be looking at is, this is a video that I pulled off of the band.video site, which is great because one of the things that band.video allows is distribution by proxy, which means that since they're banned from a bunch of platforms, they've given people permission to take their videos, share them, and things like that. But of course, we've got credit from where it came from at the top, not only so you guys know where it came from, because these people work hard on these videos, they deserve the credit, but it'll also be easier for you to find it as well and share it out. So let's go into this real quick, and we will be right back.
מלאה בדיקטטורות שנוצרו על ידי מי שהגיעו לשלטון בדרך חוקית. think about the politician you most hate in the world, or think about the religious movement or the ideological movement that which was the worst in history from your perspective, and take a few minutes to think, what would they do with the technologies that I'm developing right now?
Good evening, Mr. Harari. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us tonight. My question indeed is a bit more personal. You've called yourself a prophet tonight, or you use the word.
I repeatedly denied that.
I mean, all this story about Jesus rising from the dead and being the Son of God, this is fake news.
Yuval Noah Harari, a spokesperson and advisor for the World Economic Forum and Klaus Schwab's right-hand man, people say. I don't think I've ever seen somebody encompass the Antichrist and the goals of the Antichrist more than this person. This guy is pushing for practically new religions based off technology. He calls and openly says that we're going to be having entities living among us that are not human. And then he's pushing and absolutely supporting in multiple video interviews that we need to be surveyed and have surveillance that is technology implanted under our skin. I mean, it's shocking. And not only that, as you see in the opening clip, he is openly, absolutely, completely against the God of the Bible and against the belief in God.
And I think that fake news have been with us for thousands of years. Just think of the Bible. But there is a concern that...
Which is then very strange, because then he mixes on out of that into saying, well, we're going to have religions that are going to come out of Silicon Valley in the future, religions of technology. I mean, this guy is so strange. It's like the weirdest thing ever. So for this video, I'm just going to lay out the clips in a certain sequence and not really going to stop off and talk about them really too much at all, because we all really know the end times is coming. There will be the Antichrist, a figure who will rule in the end. There will be one world government, one world control of government, and one world currency. All of that is going to take place. So just knowing that truth that is all told to us through Revelation, mainly Revelation 13, as well as Matthew 24, we can know those truths and then look and listen at what guys like this are saying and just absolutely see how it's fulfilling that prophecy and moving towards that. I mean, unlike anything before. Again, with this guy, all these other people are like setting these systems up, like pushing these systems in different ways, but this guy is really encompassing it in almost every single fashion of all of those angles of prophecy, and pushing and supporting those in every single aspect. 1 John chapter 2 verse 18 says, "Little children, it is the last hour, and as you have heard, the Antichrist is coming. Even now many Antichrists have come, by which we know that it is the last hour." These types of teachings, these open blasphemies and open disrespect against really everyone, not only Christian, but everyone who believes on God on the earth, is really just a sign of the times, a very telling sign, and really pointing towards the last hour. And so now I'll play the sequence of those clips and then briefly talk about it at the end.
The next big projects of humankind will be to overcome old age and death, and to basically upgrade humans into gods. In the Bible, in the book of Genesis, basically the first thing God does is to create animals and plants and humans according to his wishes. We are now trying to gain this divine ability to ourselves, and in a way we are even reaching beyond what ancient religions ascribed to the gods. Because the gods, like Jehovah in the Bible, they could create only organic beings. If you're a creationist and you look at the world, so all these animals, all these plants, God created them, and they are all organic. Now humans are trying to do better than that.
Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some God above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds, the IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud. These are the new driving forces of evolution.
We are really acquiring divine powers of creation and destruction. We are really upgrading humans into gods. We are acquiring, for instance, the power to re-engineer life. Humans are now hackable animals. The whole idea that humans have, this, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me. So whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. We don't have any answer in the Bible what to do when humans are no longer useful to the economy. You need completely new ideologies, completely new religions, and they are likely to emerge from Silicon Valley or from Bangalore and not from the Middle East. And they are likely to give people visions based on technology. Everything that the old religions promised, happiness and justice and even eternal life, but here on earth with the help of technology and not after death with the help of some supernatural being. That in 200 years, Earth is dominated by entities which are more different from us than we are different from Neanderthals. Different bodies, different brains, different minds. Artificial intelligence and technology in general are going to break out of this limited realm of organic biology and create something completely new. Surveillance, people could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin, which I think is maybe the most important development of the 21st century, is this ability to hack human beings, to go under the skin, collect biometric data, analyze it, and understand people better than they understand themselves. This, I believe, is maybe the most important event of the 21st century. Maybe in a couple of decades, when people look back, the thing they will remember from the COVID crisis is this is the moment when everything went digital. And if this was the moment when everything became monitored, that we agreed to be surveyed all the time, not just in authoritarian regimes, but even in democracies. And maybe most importantly at all, this was the moment when surveillance started going under the skin. Because really we haven't seen anything yet. I think that the big process that's happening right now in the world is hacking human beings, the ability to hack humans, to understand deeply what's happening within you, what makes you go. For that, the most important data is not what you read and who you meet and what you buy, it's what's happening inside your body. So we had these two big revolutions, the computer science revolution, or the infotech revolution, and the revolution in the biological sciences. And they are still separate, but they are about to merge. They are merging around, I would say, the biometric sensor. It's the thing, it's the gadget, it's the technology that converts biological data into digital data that can be analyzed by computers. And having the ability to really monitor people under the skin, this is the biggest game changer of all. What we have seen so far, it's corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. Mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries, which previously rejected them, and we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin. Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin. What's our body temperature? What's our blood pressure? What is our medical condition?
It's truly quite shocking, isn't it? I don't think I've ever seen anybody encompass really just the ideologies and the total picture of what the Antichrist will be pushing and the end times truth that we know of just complete control, complete new religion, complete mocking of God, blaspheming in a way that's like not like anyone in the past really has. Like this, the way this guy blasphemes is very strange. It's in like a very scientific mocking, but scientific and culturally like manipulated. It's very strange. It's unlike anything I think I've ever seen. This is somebody to definitely keep our eye on.
COVID is critical because this is what convinces people to accept, to legitimize total biometric surveillance. We want to stop this epidemic. We need not just to monitor people, we need to monitor what's happening under their skin. What we have seen so far is corporations and governments collecting data about where we go, who we meet, what movies we watch. The next phase is the surveillance going under our skin. We now see mass surveillance systems established even in democratic countries, which previously rejected them. And we also see a change in the nature of surveillance. Previously, surveillance was mainly above the skin. Now it's going under the skin.
Embedded in his hand is a microchip that serves as his keys, his ID, and his wallet.
Governments want to know not just where we go or who we meet. Above all, they want to know what is happening under our skin.
I knew these vaccines were not going to protect against infection.
COVID makes it accelerates the process of digitalization and automatization. It legitimizes the deployment of mass surveillance, and it makes surveillance go under your skin.
This is Richard Werner, the top academic scholar in the world on central banking.
The nature of this CBDC, what is it actually going to look like? They never talk about that. Right. But I heard one European central banker tell me what it's going to look like. And it was around this large and would be implanted under your skin.
CBDC. If that happens, we're done.
How concerned are you about the collapse of the U.S. dollar, sir?
It's the end of the dollar system. So the end is near for the U.S. dollar.
One way to protect your money is by investing in precious metals. When you go to bh-pm.com, use promo code TRUMP. You'll save yourself a little bit of money.
This is what is happening already today, that we see this merger of the biological sciences with computer science. The result, however, may not be the upgrading of humans into gods. The result may be the end of humanity, because humanity will create something far more powerful than itself. Once you have an artificial intelligence or a big data system that understands you better than you understand yourself, then you're useless. You're irrelevant. Anything you can do, this system can do better. And it's a distinct possibility, it's not a prophecy, but it's a distinct possibility that in the 21st century, most humans will therefore find themselves in a new category, in a new class of humanity. Just as in the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution created a new massive class of the urban working class, the proletariat. And much of the political and social history of the 19th and 20th century revolved around this new working class. So the 21st century will create a new massive class of useless people, the useless class.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens.
מלאה בדיקטטורות שנוצרו על ידי מי שהגיעו לשלטון בדרך חוקית.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Think about the politician you most hate in the world, or think about the religious movement or the ideological movement that which was the worst in history from your perspective, and take a few minutes to think, what would they do with the technologies that I'm developing right now?
Whoever thinks that a true civil war where human life is at stake is a border we won't reach has no clue. Specifically now in the 75th year of the State of Israel, the abyss is at arm's reach.
You say the federal government and Joe Biden nationalized the banking system with their move this week. Explain that.
Yes, it's exactly what happened. Let's take the case of Silicon Valley Bank. That was not the Fed's fault. That was not regulatory issues. It was just plain, straight, idiot management.
So the only reason that Signature Bank hired him is because he once regulated Signature Bank. Now, if we were looking at a foreign country, we'd describe that instantly as what? A payoff. So we have to ask the obvious question, how close are we to some sort of disaster?
Only a catastrophe can shake humankind and open the path to a real system of global governance.
I want people to go read Executive Order 14067. Executive Order 14067, signed by Uncle Joe, the 8th of March of 2022, and it went into effect 13 December 2022.
The nature of this CBDC, what is it actually going to look like? They never talk about that.
Right.
But I heard one European central banker tell me what it's going to look like. And it was around this large and would be implanted under your skin.
CBDC. If that happens, we're done.
SVB and FTX, for that matter, are just two of several major players in the financial industry that have gone under in recent months. Are you noticing any of this?
COVID makes it accelerates the process of digitalization and automatization. It legitimizes the deployment of mass surveillance, and it makes surveillance go under your skin.
It's important that people understand they can be bailed in, but you don't want a huge run on the institution. But they're going to be.
One way to protect your money is by investing in precious metals. When you go to bh-pm.com, use promo code TRUMP. You'll save yourself a little bit of money.
Wake up, America! Wake up! You are about to give away one of the greatest gifts God has ever given to humanity. You are about to give it away because you refuse to stand up like those who came before you. It is time for us to stand up, folks. It's time for us to be unafraid, unashamed, and unabashed with the truth that we have in us. And tell those socialist bastards who want to destroy this nation, you will not do it on my watch. You will not do it now. You will not do it ever. Because this is America. And I don't come from some weak jellyback people.
America will be stronger and greater than ever before.
I come from people who survived the Middle Passage and the Potato Famine, and who survived World War I and World War II and Vietnam and Korea, and survived the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Folks who survived 9/11 and tore it down for those who thought they were bullies. I don't come from a weak and ineffective people. And if you want this fight, you bring it. Because we are ready. Because we don't back down and we don't give up. We will fight for the life of this nation, and we will fight for the future of our children. You don't believe it? You're going to get a lesson. The same way the British did, the same way the Germans did, the same way the Japanese did, the same way the communists did, the same way those terrorists over in the Middle East did. You're going to get a lesson in what free men will do to hold on to their freedom. So hold on to your hats, communists. Hold on to your hats, socialists. The patriots are coming. Hold on. I'm coming. Hold on. I'm coming. I'm on my way. You're covered. If you get cold, yeah, I will be your cover. Don't have to worry.
All right, let's come over to this story now that you guys have seen that. So this is a story from Haaretz, and this is an opinion. Yuval Noah Harari caved into Putin. Why is he preaching at protests against Netanyahu? The organizers of the protests against the legislative coup aired an inviting Professor Yuval Noah Harari to speak at the Central Tel Aviv rally on Saturday night. Oh, bummer. And of course, this is a This one's behind a paywall, so we're not going to get, a ton of information from it, but that's fine. Really, all I wanted from this anyway was this headline, Here is this guy basically stirring up trouble in Israel actively right now, which is interesting because, like we've talked about, this guy is he's involved with Klaus Schwab, right? So I find that absolutely fascinating, given, everything that's been going on, because you can come over here. Let me make sure I'm flipping over so you guys can see this too. So let's come over here because you can see this as well. Here's a story from the Telegraph. Prince Charles to launch Great Reset project to rebuild planet in wake of coronavirus, right? So this has been going on for a long time. Like I said, I gave you a hypothetical scenario. I believe that if that hypothetical scenario were real, wink, wink, that it would go back to guys like this guy and Klaus Schwab. It would go back to places like China and all of these places, basically these secret government organizations, call them the Illuminati, call them the Syndicate, call them whatever you want, call them the Deep State. Basically, it all goes back to this stuff right here. So the Prince of Wales hopes to convince world leaders to capitalize on unique but narrow window to put planet and people first. So the Prince of... Yeah, all right, so you guys get the point there. But check this out. So this is from the World Economic Forum. Their own website on this, right? Klaus Schwab and Prince Charles on why we need a great reset. Listen to the podcast. So here's a podcast you guys can want to listen to. If you guys can listen to these two cronies right here, these two Bond villains, if you will, sit here and talk about this crap. The COVID-19 crisis has shown us that our world systems are not fit anymore for the 21st century, said World Economic Forum Executive Chairman Klaus Schwab. In short, we need a great reset. This week's World versus Virus is entirely devoted to the launch of the Great Reset, a project to bring the world's best minds together to seek a better, fairer, greener, healthier planet as we rebuild from the pandemic. And then, of course, it gives you articles. Have you read? Now is the time for a great reset, a golden opportunity. His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, who is now the King of England, and other leaders on the forum's Great Reset. So everything, honestly, is right in place. So, guys, this is from June 4th, 2020. This has been going on for a while. So this is just me, that hypothetical situation that I talked about earlier. I don't think it's so hypothetical, and I think it's worth keeping, an eye on, really and truly. So I just wanted to share that real quick if I could, and we will come over here. And I've really only got one more segment, but I think I might save that for later and just upload it separately. So, but yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Flip this back over here. So, I mean, you see these banks collapsing. You see these protests with this coup, if you will, in Israel. And there's a World Economic Forum guy there. I mean, all of this just stinks. There's everything we've been talking about in the news lately just absolutely reeks of somebody sticking their fingers where they shouldn't be. So that's all I've got for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me here on 33.3 News, and we will catch you all next time. By the way, before we go, just want to let you guys know, on our main show, we will be re-airing another show again. We are currently working on a documentary called The Alien Agenda, Conspiracies Unmasked, The Alien Agenda. And the first episode is going to really be focused on Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, and the Babylon working. So really excited to start maybe filming some of the A-roll for that. And so the next couple of weeks are going to be kind of sporadic, but of course we'll still have plenty of for you guys to see here right on the channel. Thank you guys so much for your love and support, your prayers, everything you guys are doing. We couldn't do any of the stuff we're doing, whether it be this or any of it, without you guys. So thank you guys so much, and we will catch you next time. Y'all take care.
Why do the heathen rage, and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, Let us break their bands asunder and cast away their cords from us.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it.
When we are successful, and we will be.
Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that ye should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. For there are certain men crept in unawares, who were before, of old, ordained to this condemnation,